It'll, all right, we are live. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Marcy Mowry with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation. And with me today, I have Christian Alexanderson. So we're super excited to bring you Christian. He's going to be talking about planning trips to state parks. If you follow along on our website and on our social media, you may recognize Christian's name. He's been a avid blogger for the foundation, and he got introduced to our parks in 2021 when he decided to run a mile in every state park when we had 121 state parks. And as you know, if you caught our presentation earlier today, we now have 124 parks here in Pennsylvania. So we're very fortunate to have this amazing networks of parks and forests, all free admission and free parking. And Christian is joining us today as part of our day-long events for the Extraordinary Give. And Christian is actually one of our peer-to-peer fundraisers as well. So first of all, Christian, thank you for doing that. We appreciate that and your support and all the writing that you've been doing about all these wonderful experiences that you've had. So you're here today to talk to us about planning visits to parks. So I have a couple of questions here. So how do you start planning a parks road trip? And I know that you just did one this weekend and took in the 3 new state parks. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, that's right. Marcy, first, let me say thank you for the opportunity to be able to volunteer for the Parks and Forest Foundation. It's been a really great journey to be able to kind of offer the skills that I have, which is writing from a journalism career, to be able to provide and hopefully get more people out to the parks and forests and kind of inspire advocates. I'm a big believer of when you go to a state park, when you go to a state forest, you're going to become an advocate of it. You're just going to fall in love with everything that you see. So first of all, I just want to say thank you. So in 2021, I decided to run a mile in all 121 state parks. I did it over the course of 224 days. And over that time period, I planned a lot of trips to state parks. It was when it was getting down to it in the summer, I was doing a trip every weekend with either my wife or I had some friends that ran those miles with me. And so I kind of, I already loved planning trips. I already love organizing, but that really inspired me to become pretty good at it. So when I start planning a trip to the state parks, I like to do is a number 5 or 6 in a weekend. But if you're the sort of person that wants to go, well, I want to do over a week and I want to see those same parks, so you could have those activities planned that are going to take a little bit longer. First, you want to determine how many parks you want to visit, activities for each park, how long you're comfortable driving, the number of days, if you're going to be choosing something on busy weekends or if it's like fall foliage or things like that. Your comfort level. So it's, do you want to stay in, do you want to camp? Do you want to stay in Airbnb? Do you like hotels? And cost. So once you kind of have those factors in place, or once you start answering those questions, you can have a better idea of where you want to go, what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost.
Excellent. And I'm going to remind people, if you have questions as we come along, to post them in the comments box. I'll be monitoring that, and Christian may be monitoring it as well, but I will relay them to you, Christian, if any questions pop up. So, that those are a lot of factors that you want to take into consideration when you're planning a trip. Do you have any tools that you use to either answer those questions that you're posing to yourself, or to help you in your overall planning process?
Yeah, so there's a lot of online tools I use to be able to kind of get everything together before any purchases are made, any hotel reservations, any camping reservations, things like that. DCNR website is a great resource to be able to start to plan your route. So if you're able to kind of find their map, which is their find a park by region, and you kind of just look in a general region, you go, okay, well, I can hit this park, this park, this park. All the first day, and then when we come back down, we can hit the next day. So DCNR is really great. The Parks Foundation website is really good. If you're wondering, what sort of activities are available, or what sort of history is really interesting about the area, the Parks Foundation is great. Atlas Obscura, which is a great website. And I think they also produce a book, and it's kind of weird and interesting sites that you can kind of find around the state. And those are really fun. So they'll have interesting graveyards, or this old abandoned place, or this weird roadside attraction. So I always try to mix those in to break things up and make things a little fun and interesting. Uncovering PA, Jim Chaney, who I wrote a blog about not too long ago, he does an absolute amazing job of where you can find waterfalls and vistas and overlooks and fire towers. So if you he has a map on his website where you can kind of click through and find things that are interesting. And then Facebook events. If you're going to a place and you're going just for state parks, you're I think you're missing out. As much time as you want to spend in the parks, you're going to have to go out. You're going to want to go eat somewhere. You're going to want to go maybe get a drink. And using Facebook events really gives you the opportunity to there's a local festival going on. I remember I was driving to a park, and then there was just a Swedish festival going on. I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to go to that Swedish festival. And the whole town.
Park were you visiting where there was a Swedish festival?
It was up north. I think it was near the Cook Forest region.
Okay,
maybe a little bit south of that. But there's festival. Yeah. So it's just we were driving through a small town, and me and my friend Adam, who was with me, we were just driving, and then there were just Swedish flags everywhere, and we're like, is this an invasion? This is such a nice, polite invasion. And then you go through, and then you see the big signs, and you see the vendors and everything like that. And it was so much fun. The last one too is Google Maps. Google Maps I use for every single thing. If you just, what I do is I plan my route out, and then I literally just scan the entire route. And I see, all right, this cool vista is here that wasn't on the map, or this kind of roadside attractions here. And those really help me kind of get everything together.
Excellent. I'm going to ask Pam, who's in the background here, folks, if she could bring up the, you mentioned in the beginning, the regions of state parks. I'm going to ask her if she could just bring that up, because most people don't think of our park system from a region perspective, which is interesting. That I was just having a conversation with someone the day. Said, well, I broke up the presentations in the regions. I'm like, people don't think about regions, but it is a good way to think because they're organized. They're kind of clumped together. So, we've got the picture of it isn't coming up. Pam, is there any way to bring the picture up? There we go. So she's scrolling down. So roughly you can see the regions. Region 1 is the north central Pennsylvania. Region 2 is western PA. Region 3 is southern PA. And then region 4 is all of eastern PA. So, when Christian's talking about regions, he's referring to how are they clumped together. So if you're trying to see Ryerson Station State Park and Ricketts Glen, those are pretty far apart.
Yes. Yeah. This map really serves as a great guide for you, because if let's say you live in Philly and you go, I just want to drive 2 hours north. I just want to see what's up there. You can kind of look at this and have a general idea. Okay, well, you're going to have, if you're 2 hours north, you're going to get near, you're going past Washington Crossing. You're going towards Francis Slocum, and you're going Archibald Pothole and things like that. So it just provides a good scale for you to understand where everything is, and it also gives you a really good example of how many parks there are. I mean, that was the reason I started going to all the state parks, because I was like, what are there, 30, 40 state parks in the state? And I Googled, and I was like, there's 121 state parks. I was like, that is a crazy number of state parks. I have to go see that. I have to go do that. So it was the same thing. It's if you're, this map really provides a good opportunity of just seeing oh, okay, there's 6 parks within an hour of me. Oh, I don't have to drive 5 hours, or I don't have to go, they're right in your backyard. There's, the number of counties without parks is way lower than the number of counties with parks.
Correct. And I will say that there's a similar map in the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation passport, and that some of our parks are grouped by complexes. So if you are going out and getting your passport stamped, you may have to go to the complex office to get it stamped. So yeah, the other tool I don't know if you've used that I find very helpful are the purple lizard maps.
Yes.
Because those little hidden lizards are oftentimes some interesting things to see as well, and very detailed, very up-to-date maps, focusing on mostly our state forests, but those parks that are inclusive of the state forest. It's a good tool.
Yeah, I purchased one not too long ago here locally. I live close to an REI, so I was able to get one, and then I kind of got it as like a backup, like, oh, this would just be good to have. And then you open it up, and you're like, oh, this has way more information than I was expecting. Like so much more trail information, so many more opportunities to like see cool things. That was just like I was like, that was a perfect like spending opportunity. Like I'm glad I just bought that.
Yes, they're great. We actually do sell them in the PPFF office. And
Hmm.
somebody is asking right now, where can they get a passport? You can order those off the website, and Pam will put that in the chat box for folks so you can see where you can get a passport as well. But
And
they are fun.
yeah, I am a passport fanatic. I don't know what's the better word for it. It's just once that might have been the number two factor of like, wow, there's a lot of parks. Wait a second, there's something I can complete like a giant checklist. I was like, sign me up. So from the very start, or from the very start when I started running the mile in every state park, the first thing I had was a passport. I think my wife got it for me for Christmas, and it was just like, all right, I'm not stopping until all these are done. Like I'm getting every single stamp, and then when the new parks came, I was like, well, I'm going to them and I'm getting their stamps too. I'm a big fan of completionism. I like that whole
Yes,
idea
I
of
get
just
that.
like,
I'm a checker.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have every state forest stamp. I have every state park stamp. And there were so many people that I ran into that weren't big hikers, weren't big boaters or things like that. They were just going around just getting stamps. And I'm sure you obviously miss a little bit if you're not spending a lot of time at parks, but it was just great to like meet so many people that were like, oh yeah. I was like I would go to a park office, I'd get my stamp, and I'd be like, oh, here you go, here's your stamp, and she'd be like, oh, that's a good one, and like we talk about the designs of them. So it's like I love the Parks Passport.
Awesome. Well, thank you
I
for that.
I'm
So
about
you
a quarter of the way through my second one now. So
good.
yeah,
Bravo.
yeah.
Bravo. So, when you're planning, you're taking that big picture perspective, you're gathering all of your materials. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it, but for you, what do you decide to book first?
Number one, so this kind of this all information comes from if you already have a car or if you have transportation. Number one is always book your lodging. So I like to generally have like a base camp. I like to have a town that I kind of stay in, and then I can kind of go out from there. So I always book my lodging. It used to always be Airbnbs, but unfortunately, those have gotten a little crazy. So I don't use Airbnbs as much as I used to. But so if it's camping, it's Airbnbs, it's hotels, it's beds and breakfasts. So that's the first thing you want to book, just because from there everything else can you can give yourself a little bit of room. So
Yeah.
it's after lodging. If you don't have a car, book a rental, and then book your activities. So when I was in Pennsylvania Grand Canyon, when I was at Leonard Harrison, I wanted to do a wagon tour because I heard they were so much fun. And there was a blogger that told me about it. That I was just like, oh, I have to check that out. I took my parents, my wife on, and it was like the greatest time. But if I didn't book it early enough, there's no chance I was going to see it because they sell pretty quick. So I wanted to make sure I had that already in place, and then you set that activity aside. So you're like, all right, well, Saturday morning, this is all we're doing. So I really liked having kind of being sure I knew what I was going to be able to do.
Yeah, and that's a really good piece of advice in that, even if you're planning to stay in a state park, even in a state forest now, because there are drive-in campsites in
Mhm.
our state forest, those are all online reservations, and people plan up to 11 months in advance. And pre-pandemic, you could maybe shoot from the hip and
Yeah.
go out and get a site, but that doesn't happen as much anymore, particularly on the weekends. So if you're thinking about visiting an area, do plan ahead, not just for state park or state forest reservations, but as you're saying, in the local communities near those parks, particularly if those parks don't have camping, because,
Mhm.
you know, parks and forests attract visitors. And so, lodging could be competitive. And I
Yeah.
will put in a disclaimer in here that we have more than camping in our parks and forests. We have rustic cabins, we have cottages, we have modern cabins, we have inns, we have bed and breakfasts, we have lodges from the perspective of larger cabins that hold more people, maybe multiple families, like for a family reunion type gathering. So there are a lot of lodging opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've already kind of run. There was a woman I interviewed for one of our blogs for the foundation that she had camped in every single state park that allowed camping, and I was just so impressed because I was like, man, that's 60 plus places of just camping. And it was just like, so she kind of inspired me to like really check out the facilities, because you could only immerse yourself so much if you're staying in a hotel or in an Airbnb. There's something important about staying inside of a wilderness, whether it be a cabin or a tent or an RV. I think that going to sleep and waking up in that sort of environment is really good for you. And I think it's, you understand and you appreciate nature a bit more. So, I mean, I've done tent camping. My father-in-law gave us a trailer, pull behind trailer. So yes, that I absolutely loved. I stayed in cabins at Black Mo Shannon. So, so far, the thing I really want to do is I want to stay in a Civilian Conservation Corps cabin. I want to stay in one of the original ones. I think there's a bunch that hasn't, but I think Cook Forest I saw and I was like, oh, that looks so cool. I want to be there so bad.
Yeah, and World's End too is very nice because
Yes.
you're right along the Loyalsock. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I agree. There's something magical about being up late and seeing the dark skies and waking up early. And if you're a day visitor, most of the time you need to be out. They're dawn to dusk places, so it gives you a different experience when you're there in the twilight hours or in the dark.
Yeah. Plus campfires. I mean, it really is. Are you camping if you don't have a campfire? Or it's the whole point. I remember saying to my wife, I might only camp because I like campfires so much. I was like, that might be the only reason I do it. I was like, there's nothing better than waxing poetically about something, or getting into a discussion or an argument, or cooking, or listening to music next to it. There's just something so pleasing and so grounding that makes me so happy when I do it.
Yes. And I will say my husband and I are service campground hosts on the weekends. He's there during the week. He's retired. And we watch families that, come together, because a lot of our parks and forests come together. I'll look there, Pam, showing some of the rustic cabins.
Yeah, I think that's Cook Forest, I think.
And we've seen families that are like, or groups of friends that are coming together that haven't seen each other, sit around a campfire that keeps going all weekend long.
Yeah.
They're like the great talking sticks.
Yeah. And it's been great seeing, like, I would consider myself a new outdoors person, because before 2020, I didn't really appreciate the outdoors. I am a man of comfort. I love air conditioning. I love vegging out in front of the TV. But there's just, once the pandemic hit and we were all kind of forced to explore options and really look at what's available in your own state, because you're not allowed to travel, or we weren't allowed to travel, that it completely inspired me and changed the way I think about traveling. My idea of traveling was, I've been to, Iceland and Cuba and Panama, but it was always like, oh, well, if you travel, you have to leave the state, or you have to leave the country. Like, it's cheating. Like, that's not really traveling. And then when I started going to all the state parks, it completely fundamentally changed how I think about traveling. So it's and vacations, and, at this point I've been to, not only every state park and every state forest, and now I'm doubling up. I'm filling up my second book, but it's like, I have no plans on stopping. Like, there's no reason that I need to go other places right now. Like, I'm so content and happy with what we have there's no, I mean, it was such a huge shift of somebody. I was just like, well, yeah, you have to go to Europe. Like, that's traveling. That's real traveling. And then you realize that what you're doing and what you're providing to your home state by staying here, shopping at the local places, eating at the local restaurants, especially with so many places closing. I mean, it's been one of the most important revelations of my life.
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. You're right. You can support so much by staying here, and you can really have world-class experiences in our parks and forests, as well as visiting. Went to the Swedish festival.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to the Bigfoot Festival. We went to the Lock Haven Jams Festival this summer and listened to some amazing music on the streets of Lock Haven. So there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of communities near parks and forests that are offering things, as well as the festivals and events that happen within our parks and forests.
Yeah, lumberjack festivals and mushroom festivals and apple festivals and fall festivals. It's like, if I was just going to try to find something every weekend of the year, it's totally possible. And then classes, and then free classes at state parks and things like, or, discounted classes at state parks. It's kind of never ending.
Yes, it's truly special. So, you book your lodging, you book your events. And good point, if you don't have a vehicle at your disposal on a regular basis, you want to make sure you get your transportation in line. What next?
I like to plan my route as early as possible. From there, you can kind of understand it. Okay, if I'm leaving Harrisburg and I want to go see parks out west, uh, what's the best route to take me to the coolest places? So if I was traveling west, I could see. I mean, from where it is in Harrisburg all the way west, you could hit 40 parks. So it's like, which ones do you really want to see? What are the ones, the historical elements that you want to see? So I map everything out on Google Maps and then kind of plan to have my multiple stops. I go, okay, well, I think it's important to really understand, like, from this place to this place, it takes an hour. From this place to this place, it takes an hour. Like, understanding and anticipating, it might say 20 miles. It is not 20 highway miles. It's 45 minutes. It's 50 minutes. It's dirt roads. It's gravel roads. So it's not like, just because it says something on the GPS and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be there real quick. It's like, it's not that way. So kind of understanding where you're going and planning a route. If you have, let's say you only want to see 3 state parks in a weekend. Let's say you're traveling up north and you want to go see Leonard Harrison, you want to go see Cherry Springs, and you want to go see Colton Point. Realizing what's available for you at each route is really important. At every route is really important. So if you stop at your first, understanding, oh well, there's a really good Turkey Path Trail in Leonard Harrison. That's going to take me X number of hours, and I want to go have a maple hot dog at the stand up there. That's going to take me a little bit longer, and how long it's going to take to drive to Colton. So it's like really planning and understanding how much time everything is going to take. Because if you're driving on dirt roads, nobody's going 50 miles an hour. So It's going to take a little bit longer. You just have to be comfortable with the fact. And then once you find your parks along your route, find other fun things. Find weird roadside attractions. Find the biggest paint can or this graveyard that has an old Egyptian tomb in it, which is something I found out in Maine. That was the tomb of an Egyptian tomb. Or, you stop at this place and it's really cool natural feature or an abandoned theme park. Like, just use the resources I spoke about earlier and try to find things that are along the way. Find restaurants, find bars, find wineries, breweries, distilleries. We have so many places to eat and drink in this state. It's hard for you to travel in the state and not find a local brewery and then places to shop. Just because you're traveling, and you want to go see parks doesn't mean somebody in your group doesn't want to go to the local town and see what they have available, or, plan for everybody. Don't just plan for yourself. Always good advice.
It's a good way to keep marital harmony as well.
It's the number one thing. Because if you just, I was never flexible in organizing things. I was always like, well, we will do this at this time and we will meet here and we will only eat here. And there's no reason for it. It's like flexibility just gives you so many more chances to see great things. It's like I had traveled with a buddy of mine named Matt, and we hardly ever have plans. And it kind of kills me a little bit because I love plans, but we kind of just go, we'll just figure it out. Like, it's like a side quest. Like, we'll find something. We always do. Yeah.
But sometimes you have to be open to seize the moment. And if you have every moment planned, it's hard to seize something that comes up.
So, yeah. And nobody finds pleasure in a tight schedule.
Nobody looks that way, Christian.
Yeah, no. Nobody goes like, all right, we have 15 more minutes to hike this. And it's like, well, no, like, there's a tree over there I want to go see. There's, oh, look at how cool this bug is. And it's like, well, no, you don't enjoy nature. We're here to hike in 20 minutes and leave.
Right. Or you see the Swedish flag and you're like, oh, what's going on here? I think I'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think another good reason to really look at the Google map is the fact that there are parts of Pennsylvania where you will not have cell signal.
Yes.
So, you need to be aware of that and plan for that. So if everything is mapped out on your phone, you may want to download those maps so you have them in the background. I always carry a road map, and I carry a gazetteer with me as well in case I decide to go off the path and I don't have a cellular signal. And sometimes if we're just looking at our phones too.
Go off the path and I don't have a cellular signal. And sometimes
and echoing.
if you're just looking at our phones,
it's get you from point A to point B. If you're not looking ahead and looking at everything around, if you're just going, oh, my phone says to go from here to here, you may miss the carpe diem, seizing the moment, living in the moment, because you're just following a predetermined route and haven't looked at where is that, as you said, that scenic overlook, that special cemetery, that unique thing.
Yeah, I always one of the main differences I have from as 37-year-old Christian as opposed to 25-year-old Christian is just like, it can wait. Whatever main thing you think it's going to be the best thing, it can wait. If you're having a great time hiking on a trail or swimming at a lake or canoeing or something, that's fine. Just keep doing that. That food reservation, that restaurant thing, that can wait a couple minutes. You're going to be fine. There's no reason to hurry everyone up, because it's like, yes, yes, you should make sure you're on time, but you also should leave a big wide gap of room to have fun, to explore, to go check things out,
to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
To decompress. So you're seeing 6 parks in a weekend. You got all these other activities planned.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pack for that? I mean, you could be doing a wide swath of activities.
Yeah, I love packing. I have shelves in my basement that is just full of gear, just for hiking, just for camping, just for any opportunity I can to overpack. I will take that opportunity. I firmly believe in overpacking. I think, especially if you have your own vehicle, it's better to be prepared and be like, you know what? I'm glad I grabbed that extra hoodie. I'm glad I grabbed that, that rain jacket, because in the woods, you have no idea. You could break down in a place, like you said, that you have no self-service. I was stunned by driving around and being like, I haven't had self-service for 3 hours. like something bad could happen. But also one of the things that you said too, Google offline maps is incredibly important. It's the thing I do in every country I visit, every state park I visit. You could download maps to use offline, and they work super well. So even if you don't have service, you can get really good GPS if something happens. And you can also save activities, and you don't have to use the internet. So you can have it all the time, which is great. When I pack, I always have a snack bag, which is always in the same place. Everything always remains in the same place because you never have to worry about it. My wife never has to ask, where's the snack bag? She knows it's directly behind her seat, and it's going to be filled with goldfish, popcorn, and Oreos, no matter what. She never has. We're never going to go on a trip, and she goes, "Did you pack any goldfish?" I'm like, yeah. Like we're
talking goldfish pretzels or goldfish crackers?
Goldfish crackers all the way.
Oh, pretzels all the way.
I mean, I'll just take a regular pretzel, but yeah.
Okay.
So I always make sure I pack my favorites, our favorite snacks, favorite drinks. I'm a diet soda. I'm a water guy. So we always have that available. I also started doing something at the very beginning that I was really glad I started doing, and now I do everywhere, which is kind of like a mud box, which is just having an extra container. Mine's collapsible, that I put dirty shoes, dirty socks, dirty everything that I can kind of throw in, and it doesn't get anywhere in my car. And that remains all the way in the back, right next to
a snack box, I hope.
No. It's in the back. It's right next to like a deodorizer, so I make sure that's taken care of, and that's just perfect. So if you're coming in from a rainy trail, I have a Subaru. I flip the trunk and just kind of throw everything in that mud box. I love it. Dirty boots, it works perfect for dirty boots. Always check the weather report before you leave, and if you're about to lose the cell signal, check the weather report again. If you get out, if you're traveling around, check the weather report again, because you want to make sure you have, if it's going to be cold that day or that night, obviously, if you need rain gear, anything like that, always make sure to pack that. I always say pack more than you need. Be prepared for different weather. If, later that day, you're going to go out to a nice restaurant, you want to have clothes that are going to be available to you. If you're going to go extra day of hiking, pack extra that. I also started doing a souvenir bag because I am a sucker for souvenirs.
Yeah.
Anything that you can spend money on for no real good reason, every time I'm perfect for it. I personally like stickers. I'm a big sticker guy. I like a patch. I like a souvenir pin. So now I started to kind of just have a souvenir bag opposite of the snack bag behind my. So it's just like all the t-shirts, buy everything goes in there. So you never have to worry about where was that cool patch you bought. It's like it's always in the back of my seat. So I love that. I always I've always just done this, but I think it's good to kind of create habits when you travel. So it's like you never have to, if you're traveling internationally, it's like, oh, you never have to worry about where your passport is. It's always in my right pocket. It's always, the cooler is always in the back seat or in the trunk. The snack bag is always here. So it's like it becomes natural and it makes packing a little bit easier and it makes traveling a little bit easier. So, when I travel with my wife, she doesn't have to ask the questions because we already know the answers. It's always going to be there. So I think that's important to just have a good drive, especially if you're going to be stuck in car for hours and hours at a time.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of snacks in the car. I have been known to get hangry.
Are you for or against jerky?
I like jerky.
Because I've heard it's a terrible road trip snack because it smells so bad, according to my wife and other people I've traveled with. But I think it's totally fine because put the windows down. I mean,
Yeah.
fine.
I don't think I've ever been totally like opposed to the smell of jerky. There's some really pleasant ones.
Mm-hmm.
And there's vegetarian jerkies like
Yep.
portobello mushrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and they give you that feeling of chewing something that's lasting that might just
Mhm.
satisfy that. I find sometimes I have a need to eat when I'm traveling that's not necessarily equated to being hungry.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think these jerky haters are just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, there's so many other things that you can do. I mean, just open a window or just be okay with the amazing smell of beef. I'm fine with
right,
that.
or chew some gum so that it like
There you go.
that's what you smell.
Yeah.
You did point out about checking the weather, and I do want to remind people that when you're traveling from the southern tier of Pennsylvania heading up to the northern tier, it can be an extremely different weather experience. You're going to Philadelphia, you're going up to World's End, you're here in Harrisburg, you're going up to Black Mechanic. It could be 10, 15, 20 degrees different temperature wise. They could have significantly more snow or different weather patterns. So it's important to check here and check there. And layers. Always best to carry layers. That way, no matter where you are, you can accommodate your comfort needs.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what it is. Just like I've really focused on so I travel mainly with my wife, Abby, who's amazing. She's been a very, very good travel companion, but it's like I want to make sure that this is fun for her. Like it's okay when you travel to doing a rough trail and everyone's kind of struggling a little bit, or maybe it's raining at night for camping and you're like, this kind of sucks. But you can't just do whatever you want to do. It just becomes miserable. So one of the biggest things my wife taught me that I just kind of picked up was just like, what does she want to do? Like, what might make her happy? Like, what's going to be like, all right, I know for a fact she hates camping. She's never going to sleep in a tent, and I'm totally okay with that. So what can we do? So you go, all right, well, maybe it's like a nice cabin. Like maybe that's how we get her in the outdoors a little bit more. Or maybe, maybe an Airbnb that's a little bit more secluded. So it's like just kind of playing to like what people want. It's like there's no reason to, if I planned a trip for her that was just everything I wanted, she may never travel with me again.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
So-
and then there's glamping as well.
Yes.
And like some Airbnbs are tenters where they're like these platform tents with beautiful beds, and so there's that continuum of lodging opportunities that you can have. So you were just kind of talking on this, Christian, about like accommodating Abby when you're traveling, but how do you make sure that you plan activities that include the likes and needs and desires of the people you're traveling with, whether they be your wife or your friends or other family members?
I think having communicating beforehand and having a good understanding of what they like and what they don't like. I will never take my wife tent camping. I will never take another buddy of mine, Adam, tent camping because that's not what he wants to do. So I know, okay, this is generally where they want to stay. I go, all right, well, Abby, Abby would love to go check out like a local place to eat. maybe like a weird roadside attraction, maybe go to a winery. It's like, all right, let's stop and do those things. Will I drink at the winery? No, I'm not a wine guy, but it makes her happy, so it makes me happy. And does it have to be 4 hours at the winery? No, but it can be, making sure you're flexible and give everybody the opportunity to have their own fun and their own trip is important. It's like if you have kids, you're not going to be like, all right, we're going up 1,000 steps today. It's like, well, sure, you might kill them and they're going to be miserable the whole time. It's like, all right, maybe plan something a little bit easier for them. Plan something that they're going to enjoy. So I look at that as one of the most critical things is like, I will have a better time if somebody else has a better time.
Yeah. And I think it's really important you mentioned too, remaining flexible because you might be introduced to something new by something that your friend or Abby wants to do. Maybe you find another passion or you get a different perspective on something, and that's really, that's helpful too.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to, I had a weekend trip with a high school a college friend of mine, Eric. And we hadn't seen each other in a while. He was in my wedding and it was one of those things where it's like, man, this is a good opportunity for us to reconnect. And I was going to take him around to parks. He was like me a couple of years ago, not an outdoors guy, doesn't hike, don't camp, any of that. So we were going out to Leonard Harrison and I was just going to say, like, look at these views, like, look at the Grand Canyon. This is great. And he goes, what's down there? I was like, the Turkey Path. I hear that thing is brutal. Like it's straight down, it's straight up. He goes, you want to go do it? And I was like, well, wasn't really planning on it. And I was like, yeah, let's go ahead. And we did it. And it was one of the better experiences like this year because we had such great conversations going up and I was able to kind of teach them stuff. I was like, these are what the signs mean. This is the trail goes left and this is the trail goes right. And it was a really good moment of like two friends reconnecting that there was no way we were just going to be in cars that day. We were just going to drive around that day. And it was just a good moment to be able to kind of share something I have learned to love with him. And since then he also from that park he bought a parks passport and was just like, oh, I'm all in whatever. He's like, every park has one of these. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm in.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes you kind of touched on something. People are on a continuum. So if you travel with somebody that maybe has more experience than you, they can push you maybe to some new experiences, but travel people that aren't as you can introduce others to experiences and help them to develop their skills. So that's kind of cool. So, you mentioned a lot, several times that you really look at the local area. So have you found some good sources for that? And how do you take in the local information when you're planning? How do you take that into account?
Yeah, I place a premium. If I have ideas of an area, I will throw away those ideas if somebody locally has a better suggestion. I am more than happy. Another Leonard Harrison trip. The weekend after I finished running at all the state parks, I took my parents and my wife to a state park. I took them up to Leonard Harrison, and I was talking to a ranger there, and we were talking about the area and how beautiful it is, and oh, those are vultures, and this is this, and he goes, hey, are you guys willing to like drive a little bit? Like, do you have a rigid schedule? I said, nope, we don't have a rigid schedule. He goes, there's a absolutely beautiful view that nobody goes to because it takes 25 minutes. He goes, if you're willing to drive for it, you're going to see my favorite view. And I was like, nice. Yep, that's what I want to hear. He was like, he gave me basic directions. I was able to find it online. And he just said, go this way and and it's my favorite place to go. Every time I go to Leonard Harrison, it's actually at Colton Point. When I go to Colton Point, I drive there. I spend half an hour just looking around. And I've been there 5 times so far. It's just like, you have to keep yourself open to the fact that you don't know everything. You are a tourist. You are a visitor. Other people know much more. So if I talk to a guy, every time now I go like, where do you like to eat? Like, where do you like to, is there like a good place to eat around here? Or, is there a cool shop or anything I should check out? I talk to people so much more now that I'm traveling in Pennsylvania than I ever do internationally, because I just feel more comfortable just being like, what's your idea? Is there anything cool I should check out here? And sometimes they're like, well, no, get away from me. And then other times they're like, absolutely. There's this handmade pottery place that's 2 miles down the road and they offer this. And, oh, this person makes their own maple syrup if you just go down this road. It's like, yep, I'm totally fine with that.
I'm laughing because I had kind of a different experience one time. I was staying in a hotel somewhere, and I knew the area, but I thought, well, I'm just gonna like test the person working at the desk, and I said, hey, after my meeting today, where can I go hiking? And she goes, ew, you don't want to do that. There's bugs and snakes and things. And I'm like, no, seriously, I would
Yeah.
like to go out after my meeting. So it was kind of funny and interesting. The meeting was with the Chamber of Commerce that I was going to. I'm like, you might want to do some front end staff training with
Yeah.
some of your hotels. But yeah. So you've done quite a few road trips, and you're still doing road trips, and
Mhm.
you enjoy planning road trips. Do you have any recommendations of some of your favorite ones for our listeners?
Yeah, there's it's hard to kind of place a number on if you were to go back to that site that we were talking about with like with DCNR and you look at how many parks there are, you could just look and be like, oh, there's 70 road trips here. Like there's so many opportunities to go. There's ones that I've done multiple at this point now. I think US Route 6, which is
It's beautiful.
yes, it's the perfect, I'd say kind of like beginner one because you get the biggest bang for your buck. I would argue the Pennsylvania Wilds is the most beautiful section of Pennsylvania. There's so many things that you will see there that you will not see anywhere else in the state. So US Route 6 stretches 4 miles across the state from and you get to see like a dozen parks, and they're some of our best. So they're usually off of Route 6, they're just a short distance. So you can kind of hop on and hop off as you wish. You could see, like I've talked about 40 times so far, Leonard Harrison and Colton Point. That's the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. You see Cherry Springs State Park, which is a certified dark sky park, and it's one of the darkest places on the East Coast. So you get to see stars and meteors and nebula. I mean, just so many beautiful things. It's hard to even really describe. When I was going on that trip with my friend, that night was a meteor shower, like was a big meteor shower. It just so happened to be that weekend. So then you go out, you kind of you put down a chair and you just look up the sky, and we saw like 6 or 7 of them, and it was just, we only stayed like an hour, and it was just perfect. It was great. So I really like that. The good thing about Route 6 is too, there's a lot of small towns you can kind of stay in and kind of break off from there. You have to the east is like Mansfield and Wellsboro. I've stayed in both. Both are great. Wellsboro is really good for food, shopping. They have like a comic book or excuse me, like a board game shop and Dungeons and Dragons shop.
Board game shop in Wellsboro. Like you can play the games.
I've spent the amount of money. It's just it's a great place.
And they
great
know
place.
their games. They know their games. You go and say, "This is what I need," and they know them.
Yeah, they know. Yeah, they know everything about them. So it's like, so those are really good on the east. And if you're traveling all the way west, I have this weird love for counter sport. If you were to go there, you'd be like, it's 2 stoplights and not much to do, but there's something charming about an old small downtown. You got your big courthouse with the steeple. You have your they have an Elliott Ness Museum. They have an ice cave. Like they have so many small things that are kind of fun and weird to do. And you're within 20 minutes of like 6 parks, half an hour of 6 parks. And you also have the Lumber Museum, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Route 6 is really great. I love that one. PA Route 32. So that's along the east. And I think this gives you a lot of bang for your buck. So if you're out in Philly, mark this one down. You can start at Washington Crossing State Park, and then which before the last 3, I think was the newest state park, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It was, but it was a state park. Then it became a PHNP facility, and then it became a state park.
Yeah, and that's fun and historical, and you get some interesting stuff. And there's also Delaware Canal State Park, which was named the 22 state Trail of the Year.
Trail of the
Yeah.
Year.
Which is great too. It runs right along a canal. That was maybe one of my more fun miles. We saw an osprey, and we saw a family of turtles on a log. And I was like, well, that's just awesome. I'm so glad I got to see that. And then, so if you keep going north, you have Delaware Canal, you have Nakamixon, you have Jacobs Environmental Education Center. So much to see in that small span. I mean, if you were to, that's just going a little bit. That's not even traveling like 2-3 hours. That's only like traveling maybe an hour and a half. So Route 32 is great. Now, if you go on the west side, is Interstate 79. 183-mile corridor that runs from West Virginia all the way up to Erie. And that has tons of great places that some are a little hard to get to. Allegheny Island State Park, I have a certain experience with. But you have Point State Park, which is in downtown Pittsburgh. It's stunning what you get to see. There's so many great views. It's really great for running. I know a lot of people for when I travel for work, that's where they go to run. They go run along the rivers. You have McConnell's Mill State Park, Moraine State Park, Jennings Environmental Education Center, Maurice K. Goddard State Park, Presque Isle, Erie Bluffs. So there's just so much to see there. There's you kind of get a little bit of everything, especially on that side.
Yeah, I'll have to throw one in that I really enjoy is the Lincoln Highway.
Yes.
Which, you can get it here in the central Pennsylvania, Caledonia, Mont Alto,
Kings Gap,
Cohen's Gap, and go all the way over, you get into the Laurel Highlands. So it's really pretty, and the National Road. We had a question in the comment box was, what park were you most surprised with?
Thank you, Jimmy. There's I'd say two. I'd say Allegheny Island State Park, and I'd say Upper Pine Creek Bottom State Park. Upper Pine Creek Bottom is it's incredibly small. If you could drive past it if you blinked. And I was just like, this is a state park. I was like, this is interesting. So when I did my run, I was just running around the parking lot and running through rhododendron. And there was a guy fishing, and the guy, I got there and the guy kind of looked at me and was like, this guy's a little squirrely. And then once I started running around the parking lot, he just packed up his stuff and left. He was like,
I bet he did.
I don't know what this guy's up to, but I don't want to be a part of it. And then Allegheny Island State Park. I guess I just didn't know they had island state parks with no access to the land. I guess I just thought state parks, okay, there's got to be a bridge there. I'm sure I can walk over it somehow. And it's not. It's two small islands that are split in half by a leveling system. And the only way to get there is by boat. So I had to bring my own kayak to Pittsburgh to be able to paddle out, run my mile, which took me 40 minutes, and it was along a mud-covered beach that every time I stepped on it, there were bamboo shoots that were sticking up through, and I was slicing my foot on. So a mile took me anywhere between 12 and 15 minutes. That took me 42 minutes. So I was just covered in mud, and I was the only time I was ever miserable. And I realized this place is a lot better if you have a boat and could just leisurely hang out here.
Right.
So that was
not run it.
Yeah, that also made me kind of confident that I don't think anyone else has ever run at every state park in Pennsylvania, because nobody in their right mind will get to that place and go, oh yeah, I'm going to run this.
Yeah.
It's completely overgrown. I mean, there's nothing there. There's a deck for people to kind of swing from into the water, but there's nothing to do. There's no trails or picnic areas. Yeah, there's that was me paddling over to that to Allegheny Islands. Just brutal.
Well, Christian, I don't know, this isn't a state park, but it's a state forest, but Little Tinicum Island in the Delaware River is part of the William Penn Forest District. You can get to it by kayak, and you could run that, and it's a beautiful, beautiful park. I would wear shoes when you're running it, because it does gather a lot of debris coming down the Delaware. But it's got unique habitats, and you're there, you're sitting on the island, you kind of feel like you're in a tropical island, and you look out and there's barges going up and down. We've got airplanes flying over. So
yeah, that sounds great. I had no idea. I was also surprised by how many island state parks there are. It's just not something I think about. So once I started going to these, when I would do my research, I'd be like, all right, go to the DCNR website. What's the park map look like? Where am I going to run? What's an easy flat trail? And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, that's an island. That's kind of weird. And then the next weekend it's like, oh, this one's an island too. Oh, this one's an island too.
Milton
Yeah.
Which has a nice system of trails though.
Yes. Yeah. And so is Shekalami, and there's another one up there. But yeah, so you kind of just that was one of the cool parts, is I never want to over plan for these runs. I always kind of want to be a little bit surprised, so I wouldn't really delve too much into it. So I would kind of get somewhere, I'm like, oh, they have a lot of cool stuff here. And I'd make or I'd make voice recordings after every park I went to. And it's like, oh, I got to check this one out and make sure this trail is really nice. Or, there's a great picnic area. So I would always kind of give a running order. And then at the end of everything, I have a giant list of every park and which ones I want to see again and how much more time I want to spend at some place. And,
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Let's see if anybody else have any questions for Christian. We're coming up on our time. I'm going to give our listeners an opportunity to ask questions. I don't know if you've been out to the forested islands that they're part of Weiser State Forest. Right here in Harrisburg. Those are open to camping. It's part of the Susquehanna River Middle Trail, and you can paddle up. You can set up a primitive camp. You could be on an island, looking at the Capitol, having a primitive camping experience, but have the view of the Capitol right there in your.
I did not know that. No, I'm going to write that one down. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I know someone had in the chat, I think it was Jessica said earlier about wanting to camp in all the state parks that offer camping. Marcy, am I right? It's like the high 60s. Is it like 70 state parks that offer camping?
I'd have to go back and look at that. It is around there because there are quite a few that are day use only, or they're day use only for like Susquehanna is day use only unless you are group camping. There are group camps there. And the group camping regulations have changed in some of the places where it's not just an organized group. It could be open to a large family unit or a large friend unit. So, depending on what type of camping you want to be doing, you may have other opportunities.
Yeah. And I know you said earlier about how them getting booked very early. I think it was Pam put in the newsletter, which everyone should sign up for in the Parks Foundation. It's a great newsletter where you learn a bunch. I mean, I've been learning so much about like what's offered at different state parks, but she wrote about a cabin at Black Moshannon. I was just like, man, this place is awesome. It has like 2 outdoor fireplaces and it has air conditioning and even has like this, or it has heating and fridge. And I was like, man, I have to check this out. And I booked it that night. And I looked at after I got back, I was like, that was so great. I'm going to book another one, another weekend. And I looked, it was just scrolling. It was like, nope, not available. Nope. All right, let's try March. Nope. And then so what I like to do personally is it's a little risky because of the weather, but I like to just sit down. So now with every park I go to, I go through every campground and I have a map and I circle the ones I like and I want to go to and the ones that like maybe they're interesting for Abby. So I go, all right, it has to have a bathroom within this many yards. It has to be away from light sources. It has to be this far from the road. So I just go through and circle all the ones. So Jessica, who said that she wanted to go through and camp at all the parks. I think that's a really valuable process. I'd say if you're new to camping, start closest to home. Our first trip with our new trailer that we were so excited to take out was Little Buffalo, which is 20 minutes away. So it's like, God forbid, everything falls apart and our lives turn into a giant wreck. We just got to drive home. It's like that easy. So that I would always say it's like when you're looking for weekends, it's like book weekends, not knowing if the weather's going to be good. Just go out there and explore. Just go out there and like secure your dates to where you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and if you aren't able to make it, if you have enough advance notice, you can change your dates for a small fee. If you just don't show up, you lose your money.
Yeah. And also don't do that because you're taking away from the opportunity of somebody else camping there. So it's just like, all right, it's raining that weekend, camp next weekend. Or if it's available, get a site maybe you don't like as much, but do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, as people that campground host as well, we find people that don't show up, but we can't, that site is yours the entire weekend, even if you never show up. So. Yeah.
And campground hosts, by the way, talk about local information. They are so good. I had no idea that you also did that. You and your husband did that, but I'll just go up and be like, strike a conversation. What's going on? Oh, is this the good trail that we should check out? And they're always more than happy to help everyone and have information. If firewood's not available at the campsite, maybe they know a place down the road. It's
chances are pretty good. We can tell you where the best ice cream is too.
There you go. Perfect.
Because when you get all hosts together, we're like, where do you get ice cream? So excellent. Let's see if we missed any questions here. I don't think. So there are again a lot of opportunities for varied type of camping, and I would again remind people, don't forget about our state forests. We have 2.2 million acres of state forests that have primitive camping, that have drive up camping, which we call boondocking. If you have a trailer, you have to be self-contained. And if you have a trailer, you know, there are entities where you can boondock, like, you know, at a winery or a brewery.
Mm-hmm.
And you can join different clubs so that, you know, maybe if you're planning a multi-day trip and you want to take it slow, you can stop there and then go to the park. So there are different ways that you can plan your trip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned Washington Crossing, and I'm going to see if Pam can quickly find it. We do have a partnership with New Trail Brewing, and Washington Crossing is the most recent beer, and it has been released. It was released on the 9th, and proceeds from that will support putting in an ADA walkway from the parking lot to the visitor center to make it accessible to everybody.
That's great.
So, you know, that's just one of the things that we do here at the foundation.
One of the many, one of the countless.
So there it is, Washington Cross. It's a hazy double Indian Pale Ale. So, and while we were talking, I also like to say that we are up to 53% of our fundraising goal through the Extraordinary Give. So we went up 10% during our conversation.
Nice.
So that's very cool. We thank everybody that has made a contribution to the work of the foundation. Christian is one of our fundraisers through this Extraordinary Give. So you're welcome to support him or to support the foundation. So if there are no other questions, I think what I'd like to do is thank you, Christian. It's coming on 4:00 on a Friday night. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your levels, your various experiences and your expertise. If you haven't followed Christian on our blog, you know, please check out our blog. Pam put it into the chat box earlier. Lots of different stories, lots of different ideas that can be found in his blog, as well as other bloggers. Our YouTube channel is also a really good source of information about visiting state parks and state forests, the benefits of being out in the outdoors, the economic benefits of visiting places in the landscape. So feel free to check those out as well and share them with your friends. So thank you so much, Christian. Thank you all. Christian, if you want to stay for a second, Pam will take us off live.
Of course, my